those who seek truth will find it. If you are hungry for the truth and you want to know what has been hardwired on the depths inside of you, there is an opportunity to unlock the authority that you carry as sons and daughters of the living King.
Did they catch me on my way up? Watch me, not slowing down and I'm not saying sorry.
Hey guys, I'm Kylie Jean, and I am so excited to be here with you today, and I'm really excited that you're here with me. I have had this on my heart for so long, and I get the opportunity to travel around and interact with so many incredible people right now in this time frame where I realize a lot of people are looking for hope, and they need it now more than ever. And so I want to encourage you today that you are so purposed to be here right now for what you carry and the hope that's inside you to be unleashed to those around you. So I wanted to share a little bit about me, a little bit more about who I am. I know people see me here and there, but they might not necessarily know my journey and where I've gotten to where I've gotten. I wanted to kick things off by just inviting you to hang out with me and while I share a little bit about myself. But like I said, I'm Kylie Jean, if this is your first time seeing me. And we are actually here right now in Washington, D.C., which is one of my favorite cities in America. And it's just been this sweet, incredible opportunity to be present in a place that has my heart, in a place where there's so much that's going on for America. We're in a very intense time frame here in the nation's temperature right now. And all eyes are on America. Where America goes, a lot of the world is looking. But for me, it's been a really important place because I've always just had such a huge heart for this country. I don't know if any of you are familiar, you've like met missionaries who are from different parts of the world and they feel like called to these different countries. Ever since I was a little girl, I've just always had such a huge heart for the United States of America. I grew up in Central Coast of California, and my family has a lot of history in Seattle. So my family actually made the move from California to Seattle when I was young. And I just had such a love for music and the arts. And when you're a kid and you go through a lot of transition, you kind of got to figure out ways to navigate your transition. And for me, that was songwriting. So when my family moved to Seattle, I just really began to kind of songwriting and didn't really think it would go anywhere. And then I got this crazy opportunity when I was in high school to get signed with a record label out of Nashville. So I went to Nashville, Tennessee, and I started doing Christian music, had a little TV show with it. And that kind of launched me forward into a lot of different areas of my life right now. I just started showing up, and my heart was to connect with people. So I'm in Nashville. I started making trips out there, and then eventually my family moves there halfway during my senior year. And I realized, I went into the music industry, the entertainment industry, pretty naive. I didn't know anything about it. It's not my family's industry. And you kind of get to experience, as in any industry, a lot of the reality of what happens behind the scenes. And I just kind of felt a change in my life. So I transitioned on out of what I was doing with the record label, and I ended up, this is a very accelerated version of my story, but I got some really cool opportunities that happened out of just consistently following the leading of the Lord in areas that made no sense to anybody else around me, even to myself, or any things in the natural realm. Because when you're in the entertainment industry, you don't really want to lose your traction. You want to continue, especially since it seems like the media field has been the consistent places that the Lord has opened doors for my life. I ended up doing 1 year of traditional college that I was able to really help increase who attended the basketball games, decided I want to do sports media. And that turned into a crazy opportunity where I got to be on a reality show and came in last place on almost every single thing. It's a whole story within itself. But I ended up winning the entire show. And that kind of opened doors for me to be able to do sports media and to get a little bit more on a different scale of the entertainment industry than what I had previously been involved in. So it was kind of crazy because I just showed up. It was especially during that time frame. I remember I got the best advice I've ever been given in my entire life. And I went to go check out a university that had a really good sports media program. And when I was there, I just had this gut feeling that I should stick around and talk to a professor that was leading class. So I waited till his class was let out. He comes out, turns out he was the CEO of the Golf Network. I told him a little bit about who I was. And I said, this might sound crazy, but I just felt like I was supposed to just share a little bit about who I am. And I felt like you might have a thought for me. And he said, you just need to show up. If you show up, things will happen. And that advice changed my life. That actually became a pillar of how I live my everyday life. And a core value of mine is just showing up. So I was in my early 20s when I got that advice, and I just started showing up places. And it was insane, the amount of doors that made no sense that started opening. And then I could look back on the history of my life and see, oh, well, in the moment that didn't make sense, but I can see how it's building into this opportunity, or being able to value and connect with people that somehow placated into my future. So I went around doing a lot of live media events that were happening. I live in Nashville, obviously. So Nashville has a lot of media that happens within music, within sports, with different award shows. And I really launched kind of doing that when Facebook Live launched, and had a really great time bringing people in on an experience that was live. I loved it. I felt the life in Nashville shifting a little bit. I was writing music at the time still a little. And to make an even longer story a little bit shorter, I had some opportunities in LA that I was really excited about. And before I went to LA, I stopped to visit my grandparents in Seattle, since we have our roots in Seattle. And when I was there, my grandma, who's an amazing little Norwegian gal, she stops me and just expresses that it would mean a lot to her, my grandfather, if I finished my degree. Which for me, I was super dyslexic growing up, so school was never my thing. I've worked incredible jobs. And so I just never felt like I needed my focus to be on finishing a degree, although I valued it and see how it really accelerates people's lives in amazing ways. I didn't really feel like it was a fit for me. But I felt like I was supposed to honor my grandmother and honor what she had expressed was important to her, my grandfather. So I ended up, this was in August, ended up submitting what I thought would be for a spring online degree program. And it turns out the next day I get a phone call that I'm accepted to this school that starts in 2 weeks and they want to know what I'm going to study. And it threw me off because that's not what I had thought that I had applied for, but I could feel the stirring of the Lord in the moment. And it wasn't a part of my plan, but I could feel it. So I ended up putting all of my plans to the side and followed this open door that seemed to just be right there for me. Even though it made no sense, it felt really backwards in every area of my life, that I would go from working really job opportunities to then going back to a classroom. But I went, and within a couple days, I was in Virginia Beach, Virginia at Regent University. I show up, have no idea what I'm doing. I'm in complete trust. I keep remembering that advice, if you just show up. And I'm back in school, which for me, school was terrible. I used to have like such a hard time just reading and studying because of being so dyslexic, where if you were to put me in front of a camera or somewhere where I was doing a live event connecting with people, that was where I felt like I came alive. So now I felt like, oh, wow, this is not what I expected. But for some reason, this is where I know I'm supposed to be. So a process goes by, 2 years go by, and it was crazy because the day that I turned in my last paper, which was my senior thesis, and I did all in the power of the words, it was super fascinating. I ended up getting an invitation, and that invitation changed my life. I ended up being at a round table where I was with some really important figures at the time. And then I ended up sitting next to my future employer. And that's when I got hired to be with Crave News. So I was with Crave News, and I got to be a young executive, and that really propelled me forward to the pursuit of truth, which I really believe with everything inside of me that those who seek truth will find it. And we're in a day and an era where people are so hungry for what is true, and they're searching for it. And at that point, I deep dove into journalism, and I fell in love with it. I started splitting my time between Nashville and Washington, D.C., and it just made me come alive. If you've spent any time in Washington, D.C., it's such a unique culture. And I personally was so opposite of the culture that I think it's kind of at work in my favor a little bit. But in the same way that the music industry was so foreign to me, it was the same way when I came into Washington, D.C. I had no idea about the culture. I had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. And I kind of did head first, and I learned a lot. I started learning how a lot of things are connected that we don't even realize, just the general public. And especially since my world has traditionally been media my whole life, I learned a lot of important key things about media and the entertainment industry and some incredible leaders that we see in our nation. And I started learning big keys for my life, and really important it is to pursue truth. Because when you pursue truth, you can learn to ask really great questions. And when you ask great questions, those questions are going to bring clarification, or they're going to bring resolve. And that season of my life was marking. Then COVID hit, and as most of us experienced, a lot of our companies furloughed us. So I was furloughed, and Washington, D.C. didn't have the same kind of access that it once did. So I was full-time in Nashville, and I really started learning about a lot of what was happening locally in Nashville and in the underbelly of Nashville, and how that is tied to a lot of different realms of our nation. And even in that time frame, in the same way that a lot of us had to get creative, I really just went to the Lord and said, okay, I need to figure out a way to make an income. And what's an incredible way to get creative in that? And that kind of pushed me into creating short films, which was such an incredible experience. I'd never done producing or executive producing in that way. And it kind of threw me in the deep end, and I had an amazing team that was assembled with me, and we went through this learning process and created some really beautiful cinematic short films and told stories, which I love telling stories. I think every single one of us, our life is a significant story, but everything has a thread of story in it, and it can break down walls and it can connect us with one another. And that really got me tied in differently with conservative media than I had been previously when I was in journalism. So that pushed me kind of into the world that I've been in the last couple of years, where I got to be chief of staff with a movie production company that was making conservative and scripted a lot of documentary series. I got to produce on Am I Racist and on Convicting a Murder with Candace Owens. And that experience was so valuable to me because it was a whole different scale of learning how to be on a production side, to learning to work with a team when we have a greater story that needs to be told, but still seeking truth and to bring truth to people that they can ask great questions themselves and come to that conclusion. So that was a huge part of the last little bit of my life. And then now I get to travel around the nation and connect with people and get to encourage them that we live in an opportunity, especially as believers, to look at things very multidimensionally and have the joy that we don't have to get caught up in the distraction tactics of this era, especially right now in the climate that we're in as a nation. There is so many things at work that are beyond what we see every day here in the natural. We have our natural realm and we have the spirit realm. And a lot of things are happening in the spiritual realm that we see very real implications here in the natural realm. And so I've had so much joy traveling around, being able to have these conversations with people, being able to encourage them. And truly, those who seek truth will find it. If you are hungry for the truth and you want to know what has been hardwired on the depths inside of you, there is an opportunity to unlock the authority that you carry as sons and daughters of the living King. So that's a very accelerated version of who I am, my story. I'm so excited for you to be here with me and to be a part of this season as we're going to dive in to looking at truth, as we're going to be able to have these conversations of how to navigate some very real things in our normal everyday life. Get to hang out with me. We're going to have some guests that are involved. So I cannot wait. And we'll see you there. Thanks for being here.
They catch me on my way up, watch me, not slowing down and I'm not saying sorry. Keep on fighting.